My mother-in-law hired a nanny to steal my baby. You won't believe the sheer audacity of what I'm about to tell you. At my baby shower, a celebration of new life and joy, a ticking time bomb was set to explode. It all went down at my baby shower. At my baby shower, a day that was supposed to be the epitome of joy and excitement, I was about to be blindsided. I had every detail meticulously planned, or rather, my best friend Sasha did. If you know it, you know it's this beautiful place with sweeping views of the Manhattan skyline and the Brooklyn Bridge just to the right. It was picture perfect, the kind of day you dream about. Honestly, I thought the worst part of the day would be holding back tears every time someone gave us a gift. But, boy, was I wrong, so very wrong. The baby shower had been unfolding seamlessly, perhaps too seamlessly, in retrospect. I was surrounded by my mom, my friends, and my family, all showering me with adorable baby clothes, rattles, and blankets, cooing over the fact that Travis and I were about to become parents. I was exhausted from smiling so much, but genuinely happy. My mom, Betty, was beaming from ear to ear. And then there was Cheryl, my mother-in-law, sitting at a table just a little too far away from the action. It wasn't subtle. She had positioned herself on the outskirts of the group, watching everything unfold with this weird, smug smile plastered on her face. She wasn't truly part of it. Cheryl had always been difficult. Over the years, I'd learned to navigate her cold, passive-aggressive tendencies. It was frustrating, but Travis and I had managed. Suddenly, Cheryl got up from her chair and walked directly toward me. I noticed her shoes first, stilettos. The kind of shoes you don't wear to a baby shower unless you're trying to make a statement. I wasn't sure what that statement was yet, but I could feel it in my bones that something was about to go down. "Jenna," she said, her voice dropping an octave, "can I speak to you for a moment?" Suddenly aware that all eyes were on us. I wanted to ask her why she couldn't just say whatever she needed to say right there and then. But that would lead to a scene, and God knows I wasn't up for a scene, not today. So, with a tight smile, I agreed. What did she want now? Once we were a safe distance away from the main event, her demeanor turned cold, even venomous. "Jenna, we need to talk about what happens after the baby arrives." My heart skipped a beat. What did she mean by that? "What do you mean?" I asked, cautiously probing for information. Cheryl looked me dead in the eye. "I'll be taking over." I honestly thought I'd misheard her, thinking that she must be joking. "Taking over? What are you talking about, Cheryl?" I asked, trying to remain composed. "I mean exactly what I said," she replied, with a nerving calm. "You and Travis are far too young and inexperienced to raise a child properly." Then came the words that would shatter my world. "I've already hired a nanny to take over." My mind went blank for a second. I honestly thought I'd misheard her. "You hired a nanny, without talking to us?" The smug smile returned to Cheryl's face, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's for the best, trust me. This is a huge responsibility, and neither of you are ready for it. I've been through this before. I know what's best. I'm the grandmother. It's my right to make sure my grandchild is raised properly." I stared at her, my head spinning, barely able to process this information. "You can't be serious," I said, trying to wrap my mind around the fact that she had gone behind our backs and made decisions about our baby without even consulting us. "Oh, I'm very serious," Cheryl said, her tone frigid. "I've already spoken to Travis about it." That was a lie. There was no way Travis would ever agree to something like this. "No," I said, shaking my head. "No, I don't believe you." "You can believe whatever you want, Jenna," she snapped, "but the fact is, I'm going to raise my grandchild, and you'll thank me for it one day." I couldn't let this go. I couldn't let her get away with this. I stormed back into the main room, Cheryl trailing behind me like a venomous shadow. Everyone turned to look at me, sensing that something was terribly wrong. "Everyone," I yelled, my voice trembling with anger and disbelief. Cheryl froze in the middle of the room, her eyes widening in shock. "Cheryl just informed me that she's planning to raise my child and has already hired a nanny to take over. Apparently, Travis and I aren't fit to be parents." A stunned silence fell over the room, and I could feel my hands trembling as I spoke, barely holding myself together. My mom was the first to react. "What the heck are you talking about?" she barked at Cheryl. Ever the master of appearances, Cheryl tried to downplay the situation. "Please, everyone, let's not make this a bigger deal than it needs to be. I'm just trying to help." "Help?" My mom cut her off, her face red with fury. "You think you're helping by trying to take over someone else's baby? Are you out of your damn mind?" Sasha, who had been standing by the snack table, rushed to my side. "Oh my God, Jenna, are you okay? What the heck is going on?" Before I could answer, the front door swung open, and Travis walked in. He had been outside taking a phone call, completely oblivious to the chaos unfolding inside. As soon as he saw the looks on everyone's faces, he knew something was wrong. "What's going on?" he asked, making his way over to me. "What happened?" I took a deep breath. "Your mother just informed me that she's hired a nanny behind our backs and is planning to raise our child because she thinks we're not capable." Travis's face went white, and he turned to Cheryl, his eyes wide with disbelief. Mom, is this true? Cheryl, still playing the role of a concerned matriarch, responded. Travis, sweetheart, I'm doing this for you. You and Jenna aren't ready for the responsibility of raising a child. You both work too much. You're too busy. Just stop, Travis yelled, cutting her off in frustration. You had no right to do that, no right at all. Cheryl's expression hardened. I'm doing what's best for the baby, Travis. You'll thank me later. No, Travis said firmly, stepping closer to her. We don't want your help. This is our child, not yours. You need to back off. The tension in the room was unbearable. Cheryl's face twisted with anger, and for a moment, I thought she was going to explode. But instead, she took a step back. If that's how you want it, then you're on your own. Don't expect any help from me, financial, emotional, anything. I didn't even hesitate. We don't need your help, Cheryl. We'll raise our child just fine without you. And just like that, she walked out. The days that followed were some of the hardest Travis and I had ever faced. Cheryl had gone from being a controlling presence in our lives to a full-blown nightmare. She didn't speak to us after the baby shower, and honestly, that was a relief, for a little while. I thought maybe we had finally gotten through to her, that she would back off and let us be. But I should have known better. About 2 weeks later, Travis was in the kitchen making dinner while I was feeding Leo in the living room. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Expecting another message from Sasha about baby stuff, my heart stopped when I saw the sender's name, Cheryl Fletcher. I hesitated for a moment before opening the message, my hands trembling slightly. The text read, I've given you time to think about my offer. If you still refuse to accept my help, then I'll be forced to take further steps. You're not capable of raising this child alone, Jenna. I won't let my grandchild grow up in a chaotic environment. Consider this your final warning. I sat there staring at the text, my hands gripping the phone so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Further steps, what the heck did that even mean? It was like a punch to the gut. Cheryl wasn't just trying to insert herself into our lives, she was escalating. But I didn't know what she was planning. Travis, I called out. Leo stirred slightly in my arm. He came into the living room wiping his hands on a kitchen towel. What's up? I handed him the phone, too numb to say anything. He read the message. She's threatening us now, Travis said, his voice low, almost in disbelief. What do we do, Travis? I mean, what could she possibly mean by further steps? I asked nervously. I don't know, but I'm not going to wait around to find out, he replied, grabbing the phone from my hands and starting to type out a response. Don't engage with her, I said quickly. We don't know what she's planning. He looked at me, conflicted. Jenna, I feel like this is my fault. I should have put a stop to her a long time ago. I knew she was controlling, but I never thought she'd go this far. It's not your fault, I said, shifting Leo in my arms. But we need to be smart about this. Maybe we should call a lawyer. Travis ran a hand through his hair, pacing the living room. A lawyer, Jesus. I never thought we'd be talking about getting a lawyer because of my own mother. I didn't either, but it felt like the only option. Cheryl was clearly trying to scare us into giving her what she wanted. The next few days were torture. Cheryl hadn't sent any more messages, but the threat hung over us like a dark cloud. Travis and I started talking to a family lawyer, just to get a sense of what our rights were and what we should do if Cheryl followed through on her threats. The lawyer was helpful, but it didn't make me feel any less uneasy. Then, one Friday afternoon, my worst fears were realized. I was home alone with Leo when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door, I found a woman standing there in a tailored suit. Jenna Fletcher, she asked in a businesslike tone. Yes, that's me, I replied hesitantly. The woman handed me an envelope. You've been served, she said flatly. My stomach dropped. I stood there for a moment, frozen. What is this? I asked, my voice barely audible. The woman gave me a tight, businesslike smile. Your mother-in-law, Cheryl Fletcher, has filed for emergency custody of your child. You'll need to appear in court in 2 weeks. Good day. I watched her walk away, my mind barely registering what she had just said. Emergency custody. Cheryl was trying to take Leo away from us. I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt slightly, and for a second, I thought I was going to pass out. Travis came out of the kitchen. Jenna, what's wrong? He asked with concern. I couldn't speak. I just handed him the envelope. He read the document. She's actually doing this, Travis whispered, his voice full of disbelief and anger. The document inside was even worse than I could have imagined. Cheryl had filed for emergency custody, claiming that I was suffering from postpartum depression even though I was seeing a therapist and taking medication to manage it and was mentally unstable and unfit to care for my child. And, as if that wasn't bad enough, she dragged Travis into it, saying that he was working too much and neglecting his duties as a father. It was a complete nightmare. I couldn't believe that someone would stoop so low. We need to call Angela, I said, my voice barely a whisper. We need to fight this. This was his mother, and she was trying to tear our family apart. The lead up to the court date was the worst 2 weeks of my life. Every time I looked at Leo, I felt a mixture of fear and rage. I couldn't sleep. I was terrified that somehow, Cheryl would succeed. The idea of losing my baby was too much to bear. Angela, our lawyer, was amazing. She reassured us that Cheryl's claims were baseless and that the court would see through her manipulation. But what if they didn't? What if Cheryl convinced them that I wasn't fit to be a mother? The day of the hearing arrived, and my stomach was in knots. Travis and I sat side by side in the courtroom, holding hands so tightly my fingers went numb. Cheryl was there, of course, sitting across the room, with that same smug look on her face. The hearing began. Cheryl's lawyer painted me as this unstable, fragile woman who couldn't possibly take care of a child, and Travis as an absentee father who was too focused on his career to be involved in his son's life. It felt like I was drowning under the weight of it all. Then, it was our turn. Angela was incredible. She dismantled every one of Cheryl's arguments with cold, hard facts. She presented evidence from my therapist. She brought up the fact that Cheryl had been trying to interfere in our lives since before Leo was even born and that this was all about control, not concern. When Travis took the stand, he spoke with conviction, and I could see that the judge was listening intently. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge made his ruling. Miss Fletcher, he said, turning to Cheryl, I've reviewed the evidence. I see no grounds for emergency custody. The child is not in danger, and both parents are fully capable of providing a safe and loving environment for him. Your request is denied. I exhaled sharply, my eyes welling with tears of relief. But the judge wasn't done. Furthermore, he continued, I'm issuing a restraining order against you, Miss Fletcher. You are not to come within 100 feet of Jenna, Travis, or Leo without their explicit permission. If you violate this order, there will be legal consequences. Cheryl's face turned pale, and for the first time, I saw something crack in her facade. She had lost, completely. The judge banged his gavel, and it was over. In the weeks that followed, things slowly started to return to normal, though I don't think life ever really goes back to how it was after something like that. Cheryl was out of our lives, and for the first time, I could focus on being a mother to Leo without constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for Cheryl to swoop in and take him from me. It wasn't easy for Travis. As much as he knew Cheryl's actions were wrong, she was still his mother. We talked about it a lot, and I tried to be as supportive as I could. He had to grieve the relationship he thought he had with his mother, and that was hard to watch. But we had made the right choice, for our family, for Leo. As I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. Real peace. It's funny because when you're in the thick of something toxic, you don't realize how much it weighs on you until it's gone. The constant anxiety, the feeling of walking on eggshells, it was all gone. Travis had his good days and bad days. The pain of losing a parent isn't easy, even a parent who had raised him but tried to take so much away. We'd talk sometimes late into the night after Leo had fallen asleep. She was never going to change, he asked one night, lying beside me in bed, his voice quiet like he was asking the question more for himself than for me. I answered honestly, I don't think she was. He sighed deeply, and I could see the sadness in his eyes. I keep thinking maybe if I had handled things differently, if I had stood up to her sooner. Travis, I interrupted, Cheryl made her choices. You didn't force her to do any of this. You gave her so many chances to be a part of our lives, and she chose to push us away. You can't keep blaming yourself. He nodded, but didn't say anything. I knew it would take time for him to heal from this, but at least now we had the space to do that. As Leo grew, things got easier. Late-night feedings gave way to giggles and smiles. Every time I looked at him, my heart felt like it might burst. Travis was an incredible father, making ridiculous faces and noises to make Leo laugh. Seeing them together, my husband and my son, filled me with a joy I never knew existed. There were moments when Cheryl still lingered in the back of my mind, when Leo hit milestones, his first word, his first steps. I couldn't help but wonder about how her own actions had led her to miss out on these moments, but I didn't dwell on it for long. Cheryl had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences, and that was enough. It wasn't until about a year later, when I hadn't thought about her in months honestly, that things took another unexpected turn. The restraining order was still in place, and for once, Cheryl had respected it. One evening, we were sitting down to dinner, nothing fancy, when the doorbell rang. Travis frowned, as we weren't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, I saw his entire body stiffen. Cheryl was standing on the doorstep. My heart jumped into my throat. I instinctively pulled Leo closer to me. Cheryl was supposed to be out of our lives. She wasn't allowed to come near us. What was she doing here? Mom, Travis said, his voice low and controlled. What are you doing here? Cheryl looked defeated. Her face was pale, and she wasn't the confident, domineering woman I had come to know. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said softly, holding up her hands like she was surrendering. I know I'm not supposed to be here. I just need to talk to you. Travis stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind him. I stood there, with Leo in my arms, my heart racing, listening to their muffled voices through the door. They talked for a long time, too long. I couldn't hear much, but I knew it wasn't an easy conversation. I could hear the pain in Travis's voice and Cheryl's quiet, almost pleading responses. After what felt like an eternity, the door finally opened, and Travis came back inside. What did she want? I asked, my voice cautious. He sat down heavily at the table. She wanted to apologize, he said after a long pause. Apologize? Travis nodded slowly. She said she's been going to therapy, that she's been working through everything. She admitted that what she did was wrong, that she messed up big time, and that she understands why we don't trust her anymore. I sat down across from him, feeling a mixture of shock and confusion. Do you believe her? Travis was quiet for a moment before he looked up at me. I don't know, he admitted. She sounded sincere, but I don't know if that changes anything. After everything she did, I don't know if I can forgive her. I reached across the table and took his hand. You don't have to forgive her, I said softly, not if you're not ready. It's okay to protect yourself. He squeezed my hand, his eyes full of gratitude and pain. She asked if she could see Leo. Not today, I replied immediately. Absolutely not. I know. She knows the restraining order is still in place, but she asked if we could talk about it in the future. If we could maybe start over. I felt my stomach twist. The idea of letting Cheryl back into our lives after everything she had put us through was almost unbearable. But I knew this wasn't just about me. Travis had a complicated relationship with his mother, and as much as I wanted to shut the door on her forever, I knew I couldn't unilaterally make that decision. What do you want to do? I asked him gently. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. I don't know, he admitted. A part of me wants to just walk away, to keep her out of our lives for good. But another part of me, she's still my mom, Jenna. And if she's really changed, if she's really willing to make things right, maybe we should at least talk about it. I felt a lump rise in my throat. I'm scared, Travis. I don't want her to hurt us again. I'm scared too, he said softly, but we don't have to decide right now. We can take it one step at a time. I nodded, trying to contain my anxiety. Okay, maybe Cheryl had changed. Maybe she hadn't. Only time would tell. But for now, we were together. We had survived the worst of it, and whatever happened next, we would face it together. In the months that followed, we didn't rush to let Cheryl back into our lives. We took things slow, very slow. Travis kept the lines of communication open, talking to her on the phone, meeting her for coffee. Cheryl continued to go to therapy, and over time, she apologized again and again, not just with words, but with actions. She showed remorse, she showed responsibility, and she showed respect for our boundaries. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't a perfect reconciliation. Trust is something that takes time to rebuild, and for a long time, I was hesitant, wary, on guard. But slowly, carefully, little by little, I started to soften. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was truly trying to change. We started with supervised visits, a short period of time so she could start rebuilding the relationship with her grandson. Later, we started longer visits as we started to rebuild some semblance of a relationship. She came over to help us with our son and showed how much she cared for him. Over time, we allowed her to drive our son to the park and take him on walks. In the end, Cheryl was still Cheryl. She would always have that controlling streak, that need to be in charge, but she had learned to channel it, to manage it, to keep it in check. And for the first time in years, we were able to have a relationship with her that wasn't toxic, that wasn't manipulative, that wasn't based on fear and control. It wasn't perfect, but it was better, and that was enough. As Leo grew, I found myself letting go of the anger I had held onto for so long, not because I forgave Cheryl completely, but because it was exhausting. I had my family, I had Travis, I had Leo, and we were happy. That was all that mattered. Cheryl would never be the kind of grandmother who baked cookies or knitted sweaters, but she had changed enough to be a part of Leo's life in a healthy way, and that, more than anything, was the greatest gift Travis could have ever asked for. In the end, we had won, not just against Cheryl, but against the forces that tried to tear us apart. We had learned to stand up for ourselves, to set our boundaries, and to come out stronger on the other side. The years that followed were full of growth, not just for us as parents, but for our entire family. As Leo grew older, and as we started to see more and more of how Cheryl was there for him, our guard continued to drop, eventually to the point that she was there with us whenever we needed her. As Leo grew older, he started to love his grandma just as much as his mother and father. Our hearts were full of joy. With Leo knowing how his grandma had changed, we felt a special joy in knowing that everything would be all right. As Leo grew older and moved out of the house, we began to reflect about the past. We spent much of our years reflecting on how special and important it was that we had let her in and she had been present for every year of Leo's life. We had learned much from her. But for now, everything was done, and now the love of his grandmother in his life would continue to blossom, Travis said to me over dinner, I just want to say thank you. With everything we have been through, I wouldn't have done it without you. And I knew he meant it. It was a special moment. There was one night, several years later, when Leo was about 10, Travis and I were sitting on the porch after dinner, watching the stars come out. Leo was inside, doing his homework. It was quiet, with a gentle breeze. And for the first time in a long time, everything felt quiet, peaceful, right? Travis turned to me, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the porch light. Do you ever think about how far we've come? He asked, a hint of wonder in his voice. I smiled, leaning against him. Every day. I never thought it would get better. Back when everything with my mom was happening, I thought we'd never be able to have a normal life. I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. But we did. He nodded. And I'm proud of us. I'm proud of you, Jenna. You are stronger than I ever could have been. I shook my head. We were strong together, Travis. That's what got us through. And it was true. In the end, it wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't about being right or wrong. It was about surviving, about finding the strength to protect the people you love, and about building a family that couldn't be torn apart by someone else's need for control. Cheryl would always be a part of our lives, in some way or another, but we had reclaimed our power, we had set our boundaries, and we had built a life that was ours, truly ours. And as I sat there, on that porch, with my husband by my side, and the stars twinkling above us, I knew that we had everything we needed. We had each other. We had Leo. We had a healthy family. And that was all I ever wanted. And now, after everything, we finally had it. Not just for now, but forever. I need to know, after hearing everything, do you think I handled the situation correctly? Was I right to push back against Cheryl so strongly? Was I wrong to eventually allow her back into our lives, even on a limited basis? What would you have done in my situation? I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts and perspectives, so please share your insights on how you think I navigated this incredibly difficult family dynamic, and if you have any advice for anyone else who might be facing similar challenges with controlling in-laws, because I really value any feedback that you can provide after hearing the entire story.